Let me first begin by stating I am not a historian. My relationship to the Wanderer and to the Congolese it brought to Georgia is one of someone journeying into their story while listening to the stories of others. What I would like to offer you this evening is a meditation on diaspora, yes, but more importantly, on footfalls, the sound of someone walking. I am taken with the activeness of this noun, footfalls, for it implies that we can still hear, if we listen, the steps of those who walked before us. They and their histories are never very far away. Many or some of you may know the history of the Wanderer. It refers to a ship, a yacht to be specific. And becoming familiar with that story, I began to hear the footfalls of a diaspora far away, but also one closer. The facts of the ship's history can be told relatively succinctly. She began as one of the most beautiful, luxurious, sleek yachts, built for pleasure and built for speed. She was, however, prostituted as a slaver and brought more than 400 Congolese people to Jekyll Island, Georgia, after it was illegal to transport Africans to the United States for enslavement. When she set sail, she had to have passed out of New York Harbor, past the area that now holds the decimated homes of the Sandy Hook hurricane victims, past the site of the first World Trade Center, where I once went to the less crowded discount Broadway ticket exchange, and where I would often take my son rollerblading along Battery Park when he was a little boy. She would have passed the place where the Statue of Liberty would stand 30 years later. She would continue heading south down to the Atlantic coastline, first to Charleston, where a second deck was built to be installed much later off the coast of Africa. And there she was refitted with 2,500 square feet of below deck space. At the time, this was the recommended allotment space for 115 bodies. The Wanderer would end up leaving the coast of Africa with, by most counts, 487 bodies. They came to the coast where they were made to lay down on their backs while a hot iron seared a W just beneath their shoulders. To paraphrase Toni Morrison, only in the head of a musician, or perhaps a poet, could their lives at this time become coherent. Placed in a canoe, sailing out to a boat, what goes through someone's mind? The child you will never see again? The woman or the man you love? What do the people who watch them go say? Do you believe, do you have to believe, that somewhere in another time you will see them again? The people who came off the Wanderer did not stay on the shores of Jekyll for long. Some were taken further inland to Augusta, others down the St. Johns River to Florida. The few whose names we know were settled in Aiken and Edgefield, South Carolina, and Augusta. Manchuela, who became Katie Noble, said she came from, and I quote, deep in Africa. Zoe Unkola, who became Tom Johnson, once said, "Where I come from, you can see the water dripping out of the sun." Lucy Lanham was just a small child when she arrived on Jekyll. Along with Manchuela, she eventually lived on the plantation of United States Senator and white supremacist Benjamin Tillman of South Carolina. Paka Gayata became Tucker Henderson, and Taro became Romeo. Taro remembered his home as Kuluwa'aka. In the United States, he lived in this house. Mabiala, who came to be called Uster Williams, was virtually blind and believed that a spell had been put on him by witchcraft. He said he came from near the Bezi River in Africa. Silukangi became Ward Lee. He named his village as Kowani. 40 years after being freed, he printed circulars that read, quoting directly here, "To the public, please help me. In 1859, I was brought to this country when I was a child. I cannot say just what age I was then, but I have been aroused by the Spirit, and I trust it was the Spirit of God, on last May. 1 year ago, it was revealed to me to go home back to Africa, and I have been praying to know if it is God's will. And the more I pray, the more it presses on me to go, and now I am trying to get ready, if God be with me, to go back to Africa as soon as I can get off to go. And now I beg everyone who will please help me. I will be glad of whatever you will give me. I have been trying to make some arrangements to go ever since it was revealed to me to go. I am bound for my old home if God be with me, white or black, yellow or the red, I am an old African. Yours truly, Ward Lee." He signs this name, Ward Lee, with quotation marks around it. Survival is an implicit synonym for diaspora, and the material survivors of the process are what take us back to times we are part of but don't know. The stories, the food, the fragmented phrases, the places, the atavisms. We are all part of some diaspora, and because of this, diaspora is never really a thing of the past. I thank you tonight for indulging me, allowing me to come out of my usual professional research mode and just reflect, just feel the survivals that remind us how complicated history will always be. I encourage you to keep an ear out for footfalls that connect us without knowing, especially while we all inhabit this place called Georgia, a place global and very, very complicated.